You're watching NewsX. My name is Vineet Malhotra. While COVID-19 and its new variants still plague the world, Pakistan and China are reportedly pursuing research on bioweapons in a secret facility near Rawalpindi. The infamous Wuhan Institute of Virology and Pakistan Army-run DSTO have reportedly set up a highly advanced scientific infrastructure facility to research deadly pathogens in the country of Pakistan. While the location of the facility remains a tightly guarded secret, the lab is a biosafety level 4 facility headed by a 2-star general. The secret project within this lab carries the title Collaboration for Emerging Infectious Diseases and Studies on Biological Control of Vector Transmitting Diseases. Meanwhile, Pakistan has denied the presence of such a DSTO-run lab and claims that it is sharing information with state parties to the Biological and Toxin Weapons Convention. Pakistan further maintains that the facility is for diagnostic and protective system improvement alone. But well, who can trust Pakistan? We'll talk about this with our guest. Joining me on the show at this point in time is Ambassador Ashok Sajjanhar, former diplomat. Also joining us on the show is Major General A.K. Sivaj, defense expert. Dr. Sanjeev Bagai, chairman of Nephron Clinic, joins us on the program as well. And Joyita Basu, editor of the Sunday Guardian, joining us on the program as well. Dr. Bagai, if you can hear me, sir, I'd like to start with you. Dr. Bagai.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Dr. Bagai, with all that we have seen when it comes to COVID-19, what is the probability of Pakistan and China coming together and fomenting and coming up with something which is perhaps going to be more deadly and more capable of dissemination, faster dissemination than COVID-19 has been? Both of these countries are in cahoots with each other.
Good afternoon everyone on panel and all the viewers. So I think it's a classical example of apparent synergy of two sinking ships, each trying to save each other. It's sleeping with the global enemies, one with another. It's a synergy between the global terrorist state, which is Pakistan, no doubt in that, and the global joke state, which is China. China has denied each and every evidence, wiped out evidence, done a catastrophe of a venture worldwide, destroyed so many countries economically, socially, medically, and psychologically. They have blood in the hands of more than a million odd of global citizens. They don't know which strain exists in their own country. How can they even think of doing good for the world? With regards to Pakistan, they don't have a vaccine of their own. They don't have any vaccine of their own. They have no healthcare of their own. They have a sham army which can be run over anytime. The fact is, if there is an army person trying to oversee a medical facility, I've never heard a worse joke of this in my life. Coming to the variants which are coming, I think this is well beyond the intellectual scope, both of China and Pakistan. And they'll be in for a very rude shock. As Hillary Clinton said, you feed serpents in your backyard, they're bound to bite you one day. And I think it's bitten both the countries, not one day, but on many days. How the facts stand at the present moment, Vineet, there are more than 523 subvariants of the Omicron. I repeat, 500 plus subvariants of the Omicron. As we speak, the Omicron is splitting into smaller and smaller mutations, which actually may turn out to be more deadly. They don't have the capability of doing simple surgical procedures. Let me remind everyone that most of the Pakistani nationals were coming here a couple of decades back for years together because they couldn't even do a simple cardiac surgery or a joint replacement or an organ transplant. For them to have a BSL-3 or BSL-4 lab is Alice in Wonderland. So I think they are playing with fire. They've already burned both the hands, but I think both the countries are hell-bent on burning their feet too. So be it. They will bear the consequences, and China already is. I'm absolutely clear of understanding a little bit of global economics apart from health and geopolitics through such learned people as on panel, that China's yin and yang effect is over. It's the uprise of India now for the next many decades. Pakistan is never in any reckoning at all because they never ran the race. As soon as they find out what's happening in their own country, they'll be able to collaborate with someone else. So I think it's horror time for them now, and they've unlocked a Frankenstein which they will find very difficult to contain.
Right. Great points, Dr. Bagai. Joyita, what do you make of this unholy nexus between China and Pakistan? The world is already coming to terms, with the first phase of COVID-19, and then you also have Pakistan being thrown in the mix. What kind of if I can use the word, jihadi virus are they working on?
Well, it looks like, obviously China has not learnt its lesson. At a time when it is nowhere near containing the coronavirus outbreak, and more important, or rather let me put it this way, at a time where they do not know how to live with the virus as the rest of us have learned to live with it. And we know kind of, we did put our lives on hold for some time, but we then changed track and we kind of decided that we have to get on with our lives. At a time when China has not been able to do that, and it is kind of subjecting its population to such horrid COVID zero policy that Xi Jinping has adopted, because of which one person turning positive in an institution or in a factory, it's resulting in the whole factory being shut down, the workers not being allowed to go home. I mean, the unbelievable violation of human rights is taking place in China. So at that time, if again China wants to play with fire, let them suffer. That's their problem, frankly. But the problem becomes a major problem for us once this whole thing, is mishandled, because we know how China is. And the thing is that, I'm wondering whether China has also outsourced making this whatever virus we are talking about
to Pakistan.
Then that becomes a problem, because then the whole world is under threat. So yes, I think some kind of if this news has emerged, there has to be verification of this process. I mean, we all know that Pakistan is a sidekick of and basically a servant. That is how they serve.
Of any country that lends them money.
Yeah. So the thing is, the whole point is that I think the world wakes up to it. I hope this matter is raised in the UNSC and somebody needs to do some investigation about the veracity of the claims that have been made.
Okay. Ambassador Sajunar, if you can hear me. Ambassador Sajunar?
Yes, I can hear you, Vineet. Yes.
Right. Your thoughts on this development, please.
Yeah, thank you, Vineet. I agree with the earlier two panelists, Dr. Bagay and Joyita, that it definitely doesn't seem to be all a very clear and open and shut case. There has been these reports. This is not the first time actually that these reports have emanated. Reports have come in earlier also, and that time also Pakistan has denied any responsibility. But of course, I agree with your first comment, when you introduce the subject as to who can trust Pakistan, who can believe in Pakistan, and for that matter, who can trust China. Both these countries say something and do exactly the opposite, and India being a neighbor to both of them, we have experienced this on more than one occasion. So we know how to take their statements not with a pinch of salt, but with a bucket full of salt. So, but that having been said, and I think it does, as far as China is concerned, it does make sense for it. It has not been able to deal with the COVID issue domestically so far, while all the other countries have been trying to move on so that, they lessen the impact on their people as far as health issues, social, mental health issues, emotional issues, economic, etc. But China is hell-bent on hitting itself, shooting itself in the foot by following this zero COVID policy. And that is why we have seen there is so much of, amongst the people of the country, there is so much of strife, so much of dejection, there is shortage of things. We have seen, on Indian old film songs, there have been parodies that have been made because there is such huge shortage that this country is facing of rice, of the basic food items. So possibly China does not want to dirty its own hands by creating new viruses. So it has used the facilities, and of course Pakistan would have been paid very well for the services that it is rendering to China in terms of making its own facilities available. But whatever China does, whatever Pakistan does, if it were to be limited only to the territories of their own countries, I think the world would not mind. But as we have seen with the COVID-19, with the Wuhan virus, that, the impact is felt all over the world. And that is why I think the world really needs to wake up. And I'm sure in this chemical and biological weapon convention, there must be provisions that if there is, if there is some sort of a reasonable doubt or something, then the international agency, I'm sure from the Secretariat of CBWC, there can be a team that can go there. I think the clinching evidence here, and Dr. Bargai had referred to it, that we have a two-star general, we have a major general who's heading this facility in, the Chaklala area and Rawalpindi area, which is, I think, which really lets the cat out of the bag, that it is not a scientific establishment, it's not a medical establishment, it's a military establishment. And I think it fits in very well with what China's ambitions are, that it would like to become the hegemon, it would like to become the most preeminent power in the world. And while it finds that under normal circumstances, if it were to follow the path of enhancing its comprehensive national power, it is going to take it a long time, if at all, to challenge the United States or to emerge as the most significant military, political, economic, strategic power. I think it finds that this would be an easy way out. This would be, to go along, as it has seen how the Wuhan virus has affected the rest of the world. So the last point I'd like to make here is that this is a very worrying report. This is a very worrying signal. All the indications are that there is everything is not fine, everything is not clear. So the global community, the world really needs to get to the bottom of this, and that should be undertaken by the organization, by the international agency that deals with these issues.
All right, General Sivach, what kind of an imminent threat is this likely to bring about for India? We are already, making plans to defend ourselves, create deterrence, because we're surrounded by two enemies, China and Pakistan. And if they're going to forge this alliance to come up with biological weapons to target the world, especially India, then there has to be some sort of preparation and response.
Absolutely correct. Vineet, first of all chemical and biological weapons are forbidden by the United Nations. But having said so, a rogue country like Pakistan and China is always indulgent. As far as who can forget the track record of China, that in Wuhan Virology laboratory, they have made the coronavirus. Whether it has leaked by design or default, that yet to be proved. But the fact is they were preparing the coronavirus, and it was prepared in the lab itself. And now this is being prepared in Chakla near Rawalpindi, and the combination of China as well as the Defense and Science and Technology Organization of Pakistan Army says very clearly, it is not a normal scientific experiment. It is a biological weapon which they are preparing. And this biological weapon is basically 100 times more potent than even COVID-19. And it falls into a biosafety level of 4. Now, having said so, what are the chances of it leaking, and what danger it can create for India, and how are we prepared? First of all, as far as its leaking is concerned, by accident it can leak. Second thing is it can be used as a weapon in the war. Third thing is that it can fall into the hands of the terrorists. There is always a worry that Pakistan is a state which is always unsettled, and the terrorists root the roost. So there is a chance of it falling down with the terrorists. And fourth thing is the proliferation. You can track record of Pakistan is so poor that as far as nuclear weapons are concerned, they were passed. The technology was passed to Libya, passed to Iran, passed to North Korea. So this can be also passed to other rogue countries. Now, as far as India is concerned, we are well prepared against a biological and chemical warfare. we do the training, we are well prepared to guard there in case it is used. But especially biological weapon is very difficult to contain because it goes in the environment and atmosphere and it spreads like wildfire. But the point in this is biological weapon is double-edged. It is do not know the boundary. The person who is using a biological weapon can also become a victim of that biological weapon. So that's the thing. So, but having said so, it is a serious threat. It is a serious matter that both these countries, which are raw countries, are preparing a cocktail which can be used against humanity. I will say it that such a weapons are not only against the military but also against humanity because they do not identify between a civilian and a man in uniform. So therefore, it must be taken seriously by United Nations. They must carry out a checking by the World Health Organization. They must send their inspector there and try to find what is the ground reality. Vineet.
All right. Okay. Dr. Bagai, coming back to you. Well, this definitely has the potential of disrupting, the world order once again. What kind of, act in terms of censuring this activity should India come up with? We obviously have to make sure that even a whiff of something like this coming up again in Pakistan and China has to be taken very seriously by the world, especially India. That includes, putting an embargo on everything in and out of China.
It's an interesting point. So I think India should use every available opportunity and every available forum and platform with evidence and proof and ask for an independent inquiry before it gets out of hand. But having said that, there is not much which can be said of organizations in the UN or WHO because they faulted us not once but many times over. You can't be a judge in your own court. It has to be neutral, unbiased, and it has to be swift, and the evidence has to be placed in front of the world. But the game which China has played, I think they're already suffering. There are scores and tons and hundreds of multinational companies which are actually moving shop from China. I think the end game of China has just begun. With regards to Pakistan, if anyone says Pakistan stands for trust, he needs to be admitted in a mental asylum. The world was hunting for Osama bin Laden and he was eating breakfast in his own house in Abbottabad, which is the army cantonment area. I will not be surprised if one of the generals says, prove that I'm a Pakistani, give me proof. So they keep having these jokes on themselves. But I think we need to be extremely careful, but highlight them very aggressively, expose them like they've never been exposed before. It's only a question of time before there is a global consortium of some good, sensible, strong countries who clamps down on these rogue states and brings them down on the knees. It happened in World War II, Hitler was brought down, and so on and so forth. It's about time now that these two countries be taught a lesson of their life.
Right. And Joyita, the world is pretending as if though, nothing bad is coming out of Pakistan or China. One country has basically ruined the world economy because of the virus, and the second country, is the biggest perpetrator of terror on the planet, and yet there doesn't seem to be any concrete action coming up from any of the countries that pledge to be the peaceful custodians of our planet.
Well, when you are looking at China and Pakistan, why is China getting something like this done in Pakistan? Because it kind of gives it the opportunity to claim if something goes wrong that no, we are not involved. Okay, it is just certain claims and counterclaims that are being made saying that we are involved in this, we have nothing to do with this particular research laboratory. That is what they are going to say if something goes wrong, God forbid. And the problem with Pakistan is you see, not even about that terror part. You see, I hope that they will have enough security in place, but are they going to be diligent enough to maintain the kind of biosafety lab that is needed for any pathogen? And if this is a fact, I am not even going into the fact, what kind of viruses they are making, if at all, what exactly is the purpose of it. But when you are talking about biosafety level 4, biosafety level 3, Is Pakistan, even though China is helping it, is in a position to have that sort of a secure lab on its territory? I mean, even China could not do it. You know, one of the reasons it is being said that the particular virus that leaked from the laboratory, which is obviously a man-made virus, by the way, if people are still going to say it is a natural virus, I hope no one believes it. Even China did not have that kind of facility as a biosafety level 4. I mean, the thing is that China could not prevent the leakage. Well, I would not like to believe that they deliberately leaked it, but yes, they deliberately allowed it to spread. Once it kind of decimated China's economy, they allowed it to spread throughout the world. But the fact of the matter is that China could not prevent the leakage, and here we have a country which is not just bankrupt, which is of course terrorist infested. How can that country be trusted to run a biosafety level 4 laboratory? You know, that is the whole problem, and this is something I agree that questioning needs to be done of Pakistan. This matter has to be raised in the UNSC, United Nations Security Council.
Well, they couldn't do anything about the lab in Wuhan. Do you think there is going to be any action against some lab in Rawalpindi in Pakistan?
No, you see, one thing about this that you see, it is easier to hit Pakistan in terms of with sanctions than it is easier to, I mean, they are already giving sanctions to China and all, you know, China's limited number of people, so individual specific sanctions. But you see, considering Pakistan is at the mercy of the West as well, I think it's easier to take action against Pakistan if the will is there.
Okay. Ambassador Sajanhar, do you think it's easier to take action against Pakistan? Well, so far, you know, despite all the claims and the proofs that India has produced at the UN, nothing has been done against Pakistan, and this is still, you know, a lot weaker, a lot bleaker than the proofs which pertain to terrorism.
Yeah, you are right, Vineet, but I would tend to agree that there is more that we can do with Pakistan as compared to China. I think China is a much bigger entity, bigger territory, bigger country, bigger economy, bigger military, bigger influence, political influence, etc. So I think in that sense it is more difficult to take some actions, and particularly because such a large number of countries, whether it is in Europe, whether it is in Southeast Asia or otherwise, they are trading, they are working with China. So the investments of China in those countries and trade of China with those countries is so much greater. So I think the interdependence of China with these countries is much bigger than it is with Pakistan. Having said that, I would also tend to agree with you, Vineet, when you say that the evidence that has been produced against Pakistan as far as terrorism is concerned is something that is incontrovertible, that cannot be disputed, but still no action has been taken. I think there the difference is that India has basically been one of the very few countries, if not the only country which has been affected by the terrorism, particularly the cross-border terrorism from Pakistan. And while other countries have their own political agendas and interests, like in the case of the United States right now, they want to wean it away a little bit from China. They want to use it to send weapons and equipment to Ukraine, etc., etc. So they reach out to Pakistan in that sense. But I think the impact of this laboratory, the so-called BSL-3 or BSL-4 laboratory in Pakistan, if a virus is created there, if a man-made virus is created there, some of the pathogens come out of the research of this laboratory, then it can be absolutely deadly, much more damaging, much more harmful for the whole world, not only for India, but for the whole world. Because the world has seen what Wuhan virus has done to them, in every sense, and how it is not only the developing countries that have been affected, unfortunately, or what the developed countries would have thought that they would be able to escape unscathed, they would be able to remain quite safe. But that has not been the case. They have also been, because by virtue of the policies or the lack of them, they have suffered much more, notwithstanding also the fact that they have been able to get the vaccines which many of the developing countries were not able to get. In fact, India, while meeting its own needs and requirements, was able to reach out to countries in Africa, Asia, and Latin America and supply vaccines, but the developed countries did not do. So I think the imminent danger for them, the threat for them, is much greater in this case than the threat of terrorism that India has been speaking about and providing evidence on.
All right. Chal Sivaj, we've almost run out of time. Last comments from you and then we wrap up.
Yeah, Vineet, no doubt about it. My point is, as far as Pakistan is concerned, their track record is very poor. Second, they have two problems as far as Pakistan is. One is a capability, second is a capacity. Now, as far as what we are telling is that the world knows that Pakistan is a rogue state, is a terrorist state. Why no action is taken? Remember that there are 10,000 Lashkar-e-Toiba Jaise Mohammed terrorists sitting in Pakistan occupied Kashmir, equipped with the most modern weapon left behind by Americans in Afghanistan, M4 and M16. Yet it has now come out from the grey list of financial action task force. So there are double standards as far as the world is concerned. They all look after their own national interest. Now, question comes is that after what has happened in Wuhan, I suppose the world should have learned a lesson, because a virus which is natural can be still curtailed, action can be taken. But a virus which is manufactured in the laboratory, man-made, can be mutated to different ways and was very difficult to handle. So therefore, the question comes in that we need to take a strong action against Pakistan and China. WHO must play its role. It is a disaster for the world humanity, and Pakistan is a very, very unstable country. It can also fall into the hand of the terrorists, and then there will be a disaster for the whole world. I suppose the world must now wake up and take a safety measure and take a preventive measure rather than it is too late. Vineet.
All right. On that note, we're going to take a short break, but very important to understand that this unholy nexus that we have spoken about in our show between Pakistan and China is absolutely palpable. It's absolutely real. It has stung us in the past, and it is likely going to do that in the future as well.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.